welcome to another up close video. Today's one is for the Ahoy Sailor stamp and die set from Tonic, which is part of their Cyber Week celebrations for 2021. I have already filmed two sped up videos for this. One of them might have been up before this one. I'm not sure what order I'm going to put them up in. But I wanted to film this up close video as well for you, and past me has already shown the clips with the previous cards that I've created. I think I did about 5 different cards, but I wanted to run through the stamp and die set in detail for you as well, like I normally do in my up close videos. So I really enjoyed working with this die set and the stamp set as well. There is so many details included in the die set though, that it's very much the die set with like the accompanying stamps, but there are actually a couple of dies that will coordinate with a couple of the stamped images as well, and a lot of the stamps in the set are mostly like sentiments. I think you've got 5 different sentiments in there and 1 in the die set as well, and you do also have this little scene of like the sea with the cliffs and a bit of land on top as well, that I actually created a scene inside the ship's helm as well, which I thought was you know, a different kind of idea. And you could also do the similar concept or make a bigger scene inside the actual lifesaver kind of ring with the rope going around the edge as well, because you get a larger portion in here too. And you also have a little boat, like a fishing boat, so you could actually put that boat within a scene inside this, rather than just going for the smaller scene that you'll see on one of the cards later, where I kind of just focused on this little area and had a couple of seagulls and the clouds in there as well. So I think this is a nice set for those of us who love our colouring to add a little scene in there, but it's also a great set for those of us who just love die cutting as well, because there's so many options with creating cards with these. This gorgeous ship's helm, I did white on white in the background on a card. I think I used it on a couple of different cards actually, like stacked up as the actual wheel or putting a sentiment in the centre of it. I love the anchor too, and if you see the cards later on, you'll see how this anchor cuts out. It's actually quite different to any other kind of anchor die that I've had in the past or seen in the past, because it has got this whole side of it is actually just the outline detail. So you can see there's actually 2 cut lines really close together there, and this central section pops out, and then it's like the reverse on the other side. So the little portion of the handle pops out on the opposite side as well. So it's a really cool die for creating an overall background pattern, and I actually did like inlaid die cutting with it and cut apertures all over the background, and then recessed ones cut from either grey card or silver mirror card or you know, fancy luxury silver kind of cards as well. And then I had actually put double-sided adhesive behind them and filled in any of these like excess areas with glitter as well, and it works really nicely for that kind of technique, but also just for adding an anchor onto your card as well, or maybe onto a gift tag or something too. And you do also get the bubble to go with it, which really helps mount that fine detail and enables you to paper piece the bits back in as well if you wanted to use it as a tag. And you can also easily just like punch a hole through the top portion of the anchor as well, even when it's stuck onto the bubble, and that'll help you make it into a little tag too. You've also got a gorgeous lighthouse die, which is in 2 sections of the main lighthouse. So this one completely cuts out a lighthouse, and in my sped up video where I created a card with this, you'll see how I cut 2 of these and kind of coloured one and then layered another piece on top and added a bit of colouring to that as well, so that I didn't sort of bleed my red colouring into the white stripes of the lighthouse. And I also like added little grey squares onto these areas, so it looked more like little windows within the lighthouse as well. So really cute little die, and actually quite a decent sized, I mean this is an A6 piece of paper here, so it's a decent sized lighthouse on there. And you also get the bubble for that one too, so you could actually have that as a 3-dimensional element that would you know, be dimensional on your card, or build up a scene with it, maybe even bring it into the foreground of a scene with the stamp that you've got with the sea and the cliffs in it as well, and have some of the clouds coming out of it. I think it would make a really lovely mix and match kind of scene with some of those stamps if you like doing that kind of thing. But it also works really nicely with the wave die that you've got in here as well. You've got like a basic wave die, which if you want to, you could also use it as a scalloped die as well. You could even cut this round the 4 edges of your panel and give it like a large scalloped edge as well. But I really like this as a wave die, and on one of my cards I can't remember what the focal point was now. It could have been the Lifesaver with the rope around it. I actually cut loads of these from different colours of blue and layered them all up onto the card, and it makes a fantastic background just with loads of pieces of sea on there. And it's a brilliant way of using up lots of your blue scraps of cardstock as well, because you only really need, like, you know, pieces that are maybe maximum like an inch thick, and then you can cut the die right along one of the edges and then lay them all up down the card, and you get that sort of depth or perspective of the sea, and it makes like a nice graphic bold kind of card as well. Also, to go with the lighthouse, you do also have the like beam that comes out of the lighthouse. I'm never sure whether it's supposed to be one beam on one side or, you know, one either side. I presume it would be just on one side so that the ship would know where it's kind of coming from, but you can do it whichever way around you want. You can add it just from one side or both sides. And I actually, on the card that I used this on, that you'll see later on, I actually did 2 of them so that it made it a slightly like wider beam as well. I just layered them up like that, and you also get the little like cutting detail that goes into it that gives like the little dashes in the light, so you can cut both of them together. I actually used cardstock for mine and coloured it, but I think vellum would work really nicely, especially maybe if you coloured the vellum with a yellow alcohol marker to give it more of that yellow sort of light that lighthouses have, or you go with like a gold vellum as well. That would look really pretty. Then I only briefly touched on the helm, so I'll show you that up close as well, because I really love this die. I love the way it's in pieces so that you can again be really versatile with it. So you get the main piece, which has got all of the handles that go around the wheel. Then you have a layering die, so you can turn this into a frame if you want to and add a scene behind it, make it a shaker, put a sentiment in there, whether it's a stamped one or the die cut one you've got in here as well. But you can also add the centre of the wheel in too, so you can take that frame out and add the centre in and just line it up, make sure all the spindles are sort of lining up with each other. And talking of spindles, you could kind of turn this into some kind of spinning wheel as well if you wanted to. Obviously take off the handles from the outside edge, but you could use this centre portion to kind of emulate a spinning wheel, which I think would be a cool idea. And you can cut those two together and you get an actual ship's wheel then, or you can you know, cut this centerpiece out with the extra circle and layer them on top to make it more three-dimensional, or you can actually have that as the ship's wheel, and then you can put the sentiment in the center of it as well to give like a topper kind of effect. And the sentiment that you actually get in the die set just says ahoy, and it's got loads of lovely like swirly waves at the bottom, sorry, and then like a little cloud and even like a little seagull up there, the top portion of the little design as well, which is really sweet. But you can also use the stamps. I'll go through these in detail in a minute, but you can actually also use all of those stamped sentiments in the centre of that. You could even just put the boat in the centre, you could just have clouds in the centre, or you can use the little scene with the sea and the cliffs and the land that I used on one of my cards that you'll see later on. Well, I really love that die. I think this is a great set to make more masculine cards as well. Obviously it can go for any kind of occasion as well, because it might just be somebody who lives by the sea and, you know, they see all this kind of memorabilia all around all the time. Maybe they live in a lighthouse or near a lighthouse, or near a yacht club or something, or there's some kind of sculpture in the village they live in that's an anchor or something like that. You could use these for any sort of occasion for, you know, different people in your life, which I think is a really nice idea. You've also got a little sailing boat die, which again you can add in the background with like the lighthouse there, and you can use the sea and have it floating on the sea, and it's quite a nice curvature on the bottom of the boat to fit in one of those big scalloped waves as well, which is nice. Or you could have it, I suppose, coming more out of the water depending how rough you want the sea to be as well. So you've got that gorgeous little sailing boat. Then if I bring this up closer, you can see you've also got a little starfish. You've got a couple of seagulls. You see you've got like one that's further in the distance, one that's more in the foreground as well. And you can kind of put them up different ways. If you play around with it, you can sort of see what kind of direction you want the seagulls to be flying in. They could be swooping down, or they could be sort of more flying up away from something, depending on which way round you put them. You've also got this gorgeous little shell, which I don't think I actually used on any of my cards, but it's really pretty, and it's got all of the detail in there as well. I think that cut multiple times, maybe even with the starfish, which I also don't think I ended up cutting, would make a really lovely overall background. Loads of them stuck on. Maybe if you put them onto self-adhesive sheets, you don't have to put tiny bits of glue behind them. You could then sprinkle different bits of glitter and confetti in the rest of the sheet to give like a sand sort of look, and then you can have the little shell and the starfish on top of that as an overall design. But you do also have the bubble for the little shell as well, so you can bring that into the foreground on a scene and raise it up on 3D foam as well. You've got these two little outline dies which coordinate with a beach hut and a shell on the stamp set, which I'll show you in a minute. And then the final die within this set is a really lovely large design that's got the sort of lifesaver ring in the centre, which you can use individually as well. And then it also has a gorgeous rope going around the edge, which goes in like a wonky square kind of shape, but there's nothing to stop you snipping out the centre lifesaver and just using the rope as a frame on something, maybe even to frame a scene with the lighthouse in. Maybe you could even have the lifesaver in the background, but take the lighthouse and kind of have the top of it over the top of the frame and then tuck the bottom underneath it and create a scene inside it like that as well, maybe even layering up the ship's wheel in there too. But it's a really lovely, versatile, again, the way they've done it. They've given you all of the separate dies, so you can really be experimental with the way you create something with these dies. So you've got the separate bubble, which enables you to put it on vellum or onto card, or even to turn this into a gift tag as well. It could be a slightly larger sort of gift tag, or even a small greetings card as well. It would work really nicely on like a 4x4 greetings card. So you've got the bubble, and then you've got the interior piece, which actually gives you the rope design all the way around, and that cuts both sides of the rope. And then you also have the pieces that cut this interior portion out, so it would leave you with a circle in the centre of the rope design. But again, you could easily snip that out if you wanted to. Then you also get the die that's the perfect size to cut that out, so you could have the rope going around in a square frame, then you could cut the centre of that out and have a skinny circular frame inside there as well. Or you can use this larger circle in conjunction with the next die down, which makes it into kind of like the lifesaver, where you've got the pieces missing and the little stitch detail. And the great thing about the way they've designed this is these die cut portions are slightly smaller than the pieces that are left, so you can cut the whole ring using the three dies together, cut the whole ring out of white and out of red, and then twist them so you're moving the opening area of one on top of the other, so then it goes red white all the way around, and that works really nicely. And you have the die that cuts out the centre, which I think is the same size. No, it's actually different size, so you could actually have this with a larger centre if you wanted to, like a larger width around it, and use the smaller circle that comes inside the ship's wheel or the helm, or you can use the one that's actually nested inside of it to cut the interior out of that. But the one that's nested inside also has the gorgeous hole detail on it as well. And I remember saying recently in the Designer's Choice set with the Dreamcatcher, there was a die in that had the holes in it that I said reminded me of like a nautical theme, and it was probably because this nautical theme die set had this sort of die in it as well. But this has different sized holes to that one. It's also a different size circle, so you could actually maybe even incorporate this with your Dreamcatcher if you got it, or incorporate that die from the Dreamcatcher into this to create like a larger porthole looking idea as well. And this could emulate like a porthole on your card as well. And I'm not sure, but the centre of the ship's wheel will actually fit in there as well. So you could even layer this up and 3D that up and have that sort of almost porthole kind of detail on the ship's wheel as well. Maybe even taking some embroidery floss and like going like through the hole and round and back through the other side, so it kind of looks like there's a rope tied around the whole wheel as well. That might be a nice extra detail to add in like a little bit of texture onto your card as well. So there's loads of different ways of mixing and matching the dies in this set to create different themed nautical kind of cards, and I've done 5 of them. I think I did one with the the knot on it, and I think I used the Ahoy sentiment in the centre. I've done one focusing on the anchors, I did one sort of more focusing on the ship's wheel, one more on the lighthouse, and then one of the cards was just focusing on the stamp set as well. Put all these dies away and I'll come back and show you the stamp set. So on the little stamp set you've got like this little fishing boat, or it could be like a trawler boat. It's got the rod kind of coming out the back of it, and I actually created one of the cards that you'll see later on. I repeat stamped the little boat and also the beach hut as well, and created like an overall design on the card, which I then coloured in with my alcohol pens. These have got very fine details in them though, so you might be better off using the Nuvo coloured pencils and sharpening them to a really sharp point to get into the tiny details, because it was a little bit tricky not to go out of the lines. You'll probably see in the video I went out the lines a little bit, but I could have neatened it up with the blender, but I didn't in the end. But definitely using like a sharp pencil would be really easy to get into those finer kind of areas. But really sweet little boat there. You've also got a little cluster of bulrushes that you can use to build up a scene. You have got the two little seagulls there that you can stamp in the distance, or in you know, in the sky, maybe even in front of the clouds or behind them as well. You've got two different cloud stamps in here. I really love this large cluster, and you could repeat that across the sky and add in some of the small ones as well to sort of build it in and not make it look like too many repeated clumps of cloud. Then you've also got a lovely long kind of shell. I'm not 100% sure what that shell's called, but really gorgeous kind of long shell, the kind of one you might find a hermit crab living in. And then at the bottom you've got that large scene that I kind of showed you a little bit of earlier with the sea, and then you've got it going, a cliff kind of coming into the sea, a little bit of land on top, and then I'm not 100% sure what that top bit is, whether that is more land or whether it's like clouds as well, but I'm guessing you can kind of colour it whichever way you want to. And I think you could use a lot of these elements together in one scene, maybe just doing a completely stamped card and having this kind of scene with the sea, placing the boat on the sea here, having the little beach hut maybe on the cliff at the edge there, and then even having some of the bulrushes and showing like the really foreground elements as like the bulrushes, and then building up the sky with the clouds and the little birds as well. And then you could also either stamp the sentiments in the sky or use one of the circles that are in here to kind of surround your sentiments and add that into the sky. Maybe even turning this into a large sun and like tucking it behind the clouds, but also stamping the sentiment within it as well to kind of create a larger scene. I'm just trying to give you a couple of ideas of what I haven't done in the cards that I'll show you later on. But I think that would make a really lovely scene, just mostly focusing on the stamps and maybe bringing in one die to add the sort of sun around the element as well of the sentiment. And then let's show you the two coordinating dies. So on the stamp set you get the little dies that will coordinate to cut out the beach hut and also that gorgeous long shell as well. So if you're kind of creating a scene with the lighthouse or something, you could have some of the shells in the foreground with the die cut shells and the starfish as well, and maybe you could even have a little row of beach huts just as a card by itself as well. You know, depending which kind of seaside town you're thinking of, you know, beach huts could be very prominent in their kind of culture as well, which would be nice. And also, I should say while I remember, I don't know if I said it in the other part of the video, I probably will have done, but on the card that I used the lighthouse on, I actually used part of this outside bubble that goes around the rope as a bit of ground, like a rocky kind of area, because it's got a little bit of texture to the edge of it. So I actually used that part of that as like a little rock for the lighthouse to sit on. So you can also use that to sort of build up your scene as well. And then, like I was saying earlier, you can actually use sort of the circle elements within here to have your scene if you've done a stamped scene as well. So you could move it further over this way and have beach huts on here, or you could move it further over this way and show the boat in the sea as well, whether you put it on the horizon or whether you move it slightly further inland. Or even if you have other stamps from your stash, or if you're good at drawing, you could draw like a cruise ship in there or another kind of sailing boat, or you can add the die cut sailing boat into this little scene with the sea as well. You could focus the kind of scene with the stamping, and then outside of the circle element you could bring the lighthouse as well. So the lighthouse could be a focal element outside of the circle that's got the scene of everything else in. If you didn't want to build the scene over a whole card, or if you wanted the scene to be wider than this stamp and you weren't sure how to extend it, you could create the scene in the circle or another die from your stash, and then bring the lighthouse outside of it as well to make it sort of go for maybe a landscape card or something too. So there's a load of different ways of using these. And then I'll just quickly run you through the sentiments that are in there. So you've got Bon Voyage, Wish You Were Here, Our Friendship Can Weather Any Storm, I like that one, Long Distance Hugs Your Way, and then Life is an Adventure. And I was thinking with this one, it kind of needs the word sending at the beginning. So if you have any word dies or alphabet dies, you could actually incorporate like a large word of sending, and even then keep it really simple but accent the word sending with some of the seashells or the clouds or the beach hut or something. I'm just kind of envisioning maybe beach huts hiding within the letters or something, for another different kind of idea of just focusing on this one sentiment really and building a card around that. So yeah, there are loads of different ways of using this stamp and die set, and I really did enjoy it. I really love that ship's wheel, or the helm. I hope it is called the helm, because I've labelled one of my other videos creating a scene inside the helm, so I think that's what it's called. But I'll pass you on to Past Me to show you the 5 samples that I created with this set, and hopefully when you get your set you'll see them on the packaging as well. So here are my samples that I've done with this stamp and die set. I've actually filmed 2 sped up videos for these. So I did one that was the first 2, and then one that was the last 3 as well. So hopefully they will both be up relatively soon after this video. But the first one that I've done is combining the stamps and dies together, and I just love this ship's wheel. It is so cool the way you get the separate piece to go in the inside of it, and it just looks brilliant from a distance on white or cut out from Kraft card. It looks absolutely fantastic, and I reckon if you cut off the outside kind of spindly pieces, the handles that you turn it with, you could turn that into a spinning wheel as well. I think that would look really good as a spinning wheel, and I'm sure there are other uses for it too. You could even use it as kind of like a base for weaving twine around as well, because you've got these handles at equidistant points around the circumference. You could actually like weave stuff in between them to give a cool different look too. Maybe even snip out these portions where they're joined and like turn it into some kind of nautical looking snowflake or something for a nautical Christmas card. I don't know if people make them, but that could be a cool idea for a way to use it. But I just love that shape. I just had to use it somehow, because the other uses that I had used it for, I'd cut the middle out and hadn't used this portion, so I just had to create a background with it just white on white, and it just gives that like faux embossing folder look, which I always love that look. And then for the main portion of this one, I cut the centre out to turn it into a frame, and then I've just used a portion of that like cliff image that's in the stamp set, stamped the seagulls in the background as well, and just done some alcohol colouring on there to give you like the little cliffs and the sea with like dark and light from the clouds and stuff in the background, and then I've done the clouds sort of coming out of the frame, which I also love to do. I love to bring elements outside of a frame, especially if you've used a small frame for the main focal point, adding extra pieces, like if it was like for example the whale stamp and die set from the Stamp Club that came out a while ago, having like a whale jumping out of the sea or something. You could do that with this as well. You could play on that little sea scene and bring in other bits and pieces that you have as well, and have something jumping out of the scene too, which I think is always lovely to do. So that's just using a few of the clouds, and then I just used the Long Distance Hugs Your Way. It kind of should need the word sending, but it wasn't in the stamp and die set, so if you have the word sending from something else, you could also add that to that sentiment as well if you wanted to elongate it a little bit. So that's the first card, which is in the sped up video with 2 cards, and this is the second card just using the stamps. I really love this like little fishing boat. It's really sweet, and you can colour it in lots of different ways to make it look different. I think when you do it with like the grey hull, it almost looks like a tanker. If you took off the actual like fishing portion of it. It could be a little tanker that you might see going in and out of Southampton, which would be really cool for anybody who lives near there. And then I've also done a little row of the beach huts as well. When I was stamping the little boat, I moved my cardstock along 1.5 inches to get that increment, and when I was doing the little houses, the little beach huts, it was 3/4 of an inch. So on the bottom of your stamping platform, you start over here. So you'll see it in the video, but if you have your stamping platform, you actually put the stamp further to the outside edge, and you start with your card here, and then you keep moving it in with the different increments, and that's how you get the perfect positioning across your card. I always forget that you can do that, and then it takes me a little while to think, where do I need to position the stamp to be able to move my cardstock? Because if you start here, there's no way you can move the cardstock that way. So you have to start on the outside edge of your stamping platform with the card over here. So you would stamp that one. I just figured out a distance so that I could have that stamp in there. And then it was 3/4 of an inch moving it along for the other beach huts on there. And I've just, for all of these cards, I've stuck with the same colour scheme as well. So just like a teal, a blue, a red and a green to bring all of these cards together. But I just really like that, and I did actually 3D up one of the little boats as well, just to add an extra interest, and I just used the "wish you were here" sentiment on there as well. Then these three are all in the same video. I love these three. I love how they turned out. They look so good. Like exactly how I was imagining them looking in my head. So this is using the gorgeous lighthouse, which is in the die set. These are all just using the dies, by the way, all of these last three. The lovely sea that's in there as well, the little tiny sailboat, some of the seagulls as well, and this portion here is actually, I wanted something for the lighthouse to sit on, so it looks like the sea's in front of and behind the rock that the lighthouse is on, but this rock is actually the outside bubble edge for the rope knot piece that's in the die set. So this die has an outside bubble edge to it, and it's actually a portion of that to create the rock, and I thought that works so perfectly to give you a little bit of land for your lighthouse to sit on. Then I have layered red cardstock behind the die cut. I've coloured the top bit with grey alcohol pens and used yellow ones to do the light that's coming out of the lighthouse. I decided to put 2 of the little beams coming out of it, but obviously you could have one going one way and one coming out the other way. I just like it more when they're all pointing in one direction. I know that's not actually how a lighthouse would work. It obviously goes around, but I suppose actually, doesn't the light spin in the lighthouse? Does it only, I think maybe it does only have one beam of light that spins around. I'm not sure, I can't remember. But anyway, that's another way of creating a larger beam of light if you want to. And then I've just used the gorgeous little sailboat inside the sea as well. And because I was sticking to just the dies, instead of using one of the stamps as the sentiment, I just did my Dymo labeler and put "see you soon" as a funny punny kind of sentiment for it. And the background is actually tumbled glass distress oxide to get the blue, but the white clouds is the, as I'm filming this, the current newest set of ink pads from Tonic has the little white pigment ink in there. This is the Santa's Workshop set of ink pads, and it has the beautiful little white pigment ink, and I was using one of the precision Nuvo blending brushes to tap the clouds onto there. I keep one just for white, and I put it in a little bag so it doesn't get contaminated or contaminate anything else. But yeah, just tapping that on gives that cool cloudy effect, and I also splattered a little bit of white on as well, but I thought that gave a really nice subtle, gentle kind of background to the card. I know you'd only really see the light in the night time, but you know, it gives a cheerier feel to the card if you have it in the daytime, I think. So that's that one. And then I did this one using that sea die for the entire background, and then I also used that focal kind of knot piece with the lifesaver in the centre of it, and I also used the sentiment "Ahoy", and I coloured in the bits and pieces that are inside the sentiment. So I cut it twice, I stuck one down, and then I coloured the pieces in with the with some alcohol pens that were similar to the colours of Tonic cardstock that I'd used, and I coloured the sky in there, and I left the cloud white, and then I stuck another one over the top to neaten it up where I'd gone out of the edges. So I think that looks really cool like that, and to kind of tie in the white of the card blank, the white from in here and the white of the seagulls, I just used a little bit of a white gel pen just to add some detail to the sea as well. And then the final one that I did was using that gorgeous anchor, and I was not expecting it to cut out the way that it did. I probably already said this earlier on in the video, but look how it cuts out. It cuts with this bit like missing out of it. It's like a funky modern kind of anchor, the way like the opposite pieces are missing out of it. So perfect to paper piece back in, but also if you didn't want to paper piece the pieces back in, the way I did this background was I cut loads of the anchors from different colours of silver and grey cardstock, and then I cut the anchor again loads of times out of my backing piece of card, so I had the apertures. And then I stuck that whole piece with the apertures onto some double-sided adhesive sheet, and then I placed the die cuts back in with all the bits popped out, but I placed the die cuts back into the apertures, put this piece back in that I'd saved between, you know, in that hole at the top of the anchor, and then I filled the rest of the space in with glitter, and I used the mirror ball glitter, but the silver tinsel glitter would work just as well if you can't get hold of the mirror ball one. But yeah, I think that gives a really cool look because I've used grey and silver cardstock plus the silver glitter. It almost gives the effect that they are a full anchor, but it has that little bit of sparkle to them as well, which I really love the look of. And I think that's just an extra way of using the anchors in the background, but you could have just stuck the anchors down and pieced bits back in if you wanted to. However, I thought this, because I'm doing it all over the background, I thought this was a quicker way of doing it because I didn't have to like put glue behind all the fiddly little tiny skinny areas of the anchors. And doing it this way, you already had a guide of where to place the anchor back in so that all these tiny delicate thin lines actually stuck down in the right place, if you know what I mean. And then adding the glitter in as well is obviously much easier if you've got a double-sided adhesive sheet behind there. And then the anchors, or the ship's wheel again, I've used on this one. I just love that wheel so much. But I'd used the kind of porthole sort of die to cut the sentiment out again like I did on this one. But this time I paper pieced the waves and the cloud in, so I used some silver mirror card and I paper pieced the waves and the cloud in, so you can get two different looks from that, whether you colour it with alcohol pens or you just paper piece in as well, or you can just leave it as it is as well. It looks really lovely, but I thought because this is all kind of sort of paper pieced sort of effect, I thought I might as well carry that onto the sentiment as well. So those are all of the cards that I made with this stamp and die set. I might have made more by the time I filmed this video, the beginning of this video, but I thought I'd also just show you collectively all of the pens that I used to colour everything, just in case you're interested. These were all of the Nuvo alcohol pens that I was using to colour everything. Oh, no, there isn't one missing. I was going to say, these two were what I used for the light. That one always throws me because it doesn't look as if it's going to be a yellowy colour. It looks more of a browny colour, but it does come out a lovely yellow. So those were all the ones that I used to do all of the colouring. Some of the greys were like the cliffs in here and the bottoms of the boats and stuff as well, and the top of the lighthouse. And then these blues go really nicely with the cardstock. So this blue, which is the 363, which is called Tropical Ocean, that one goes really nicely with the ocean Kraft Perfect textured cardstock. And then I think it was the Ultramarine 430 goes perfectly with the French blue textured Kraft Perfect as well. So that really made these waves tie in with the cardstock that I'd used in the background as well. So I thought I'd just show you those pens. You can take a screenshot if you're really interested in what colours that I used. This one was the light blue that I'd used in the sky on that one and in the sky on that one. So hopefully, you know, if you're interested, you can screenshot that. But yeah, those were the cards that I've done with this gorgeous stamp and die set. I love this one. I really, really love this set. I think I'm going to be using it quite a lot, especially for cards for my nan because she lives by the sea. So yeah, I really, really love this, and I will pass you back to future me to finish off the video for you. Bye! So I hope you enjoyed this up-close video looking at the Ahoy Sailor stamp and die set from the Cyber Week celebrations for Tonic for 2021. I think this is coming out in about the middle of the week, so you should still have a few more bits and pieces being released throughout the rest of the Cyber Week, and all of the links to this set will be in the description box below the video, and also on my blog as well. And I'll also put in the description a generic kind of link to the actual Cyber Week page on Tonic's website, because there are loads of other offers going on as well, not just the ones I've been doing videos on. They've got like bundles of card stock and, you know, other exclusive kind of bits and pieces that you've not seen before. And I've also found out if you spend over £50 during this Cyber Week celebration, you will get a free gift as well, and I think it puts it in your basket for you, so you'll know when you've qualified for it, because it will come up and say that it's a zero amount and it's a free gift for you. So yeah, and all of the links as well are affiliate links too, so I really do appreciate you taking the time to use them as well. It really means so much to me, so thank you so much to everybody who has and does use my affiliate links as well. So I hope you enjoyed the cards that Past Me just showed you, and I hope you continue to enjoy the rest of the videos that are coming out during the Cyber Week celebrations. I've tried to sort of split them up into like an up close video and then the sped up kind of one, so hopefully there's a nice mixture of different ones coming out for you as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!